that you know that you have inside you, that you know that you feel for the people that are closest to you, that love always wins, no matter what, even when...
Many people were curious about the specifics of Eddie Van Halen and his relationship years after they broke up. The marriage of Valerie Bertinelli. It appeared as though their relationship would last forever, but in a recent Valerie Bertinelli has discussed her life and the complexities of her relationship with Eddie Van in an interview. Halen. They had a long-lasting, solid relationship built on affection and respect for one another, even continuing to live in close quarters for a while after their separation. Valerie was when death sent her ex-husband to the afterlife. What precisely caused such a close-knit family to part ways? Split up as a couple. Come along as she remembers him and we solve the mystery of their divorce. What life appeared to be like for her when they split up and the hidden complexities. You will be shell-shocked by some of these situations, so pay attention until the very end. Sharing her tale has never been a source of fear for Valerie Bertinelli. During a recent interview she shares some intimate thoughts and moments and exposes her soul. Revealing to her audience details of her life, her relationship with Eddie Van Halen, and the knowledge she has gained about loss, love, and self-acceptance. What was it she said? How did it all turn out? The manner in which it did when they were obviously still very attached. Let's begin. An unending love. Valerie's long-standing friendship with Eddie was the main topic of her interview. Although they broke up more than 20 years ago, but their bond still seemed to be quite strong. As stated by her, their relationship stayed strong because of their shared respect and love for one another, even after their separation. As a result, their relationship lasted long after they were married. Concluded. Regardless of how amicable the separation is, this is precisely what attracted attention to ex-couples. Are uncommonly this intimate and dedicated, particularly in Hollywood. She recognized what most people were interested in and described how her parents' odd choice to use a mediator instead of keep the peace, which was essential for their son Wolfgang, by going to court and hiring counsel. Even after they split up, they remained close, with Eddie making sure his son would be secure and practical by personally verifying that her new residence was sufficiently close. Although thereafter a love relationship ended, this unusual consideration demonstrated the deep concern that remained between them. However, she clarified that, although it's true that they still had a rare fondness for one another, yet resentment was still very much alive. Eddie had trouble with the anguish and rage brought on by their separation for a long period before eventually understanding under control. Death, regrettably, is harsh and unexpected. Eddie's untimely death 2020 was one that Valeria was deeply distressed about in October. She thought about the interview and her realization that occasionally the people we think we've let go of might come back into our lives in the most surprising ways. Many people think that she and him are related. Was characterized by love, respect, and understanding that persisted despite their life's ups and downs. To determine the precise location of the problem, from the beginning, we must examine their relationship. The first time the couple met was in 1708. Valerie was a rising star at the time. He was already the renowned guitarist, and she was a television actress best known for her work on One Day at a Time. Of Van Halen, a rock group. They met backstage at one of his performances in Shreveport, Louisiana, and they were immediately drawn to it. On the 11th day they were married in a private ceremony in California on April 1, 1981. Their nuptials were a combination of two extremely distinct worlds, Hollywood television and rock music. Maybe realizing the nature of their work, they chose to live more covert lives, maintaining their union as discreetly as possible. On March 16, 10 years after they were married, Wolfgang William Van Halen, their son, was born on this day in 1991. Later, Wolfgang would come next. Following in his father's footsteps, he developed into a gifted musician before joining Van Halen as the bassist for the group. Eddie and Valerie's marriage was put to the test over the years by every time as a couple's biggest dread. As various aspects of their personalities clashed and tensions increased, rubbed the other off. Eddie's battles with substance misuse, in addition to the demands their love suffered as a result of their careers' prolonged separations and fame. In frank terms, Valerie explained how these problems progressively grew worse until they were completely destroyed. Although they were still legally wed, Eddie and Valerie split up in 2101. They went on to continue having a cordial relationship with Wolfgang while co-parenting him. Ultimately, in December of 2005, Valerie formally filed for divorce from Eddie, claiming that after a number of years of separation, the disagreements are insurmountable. Their divorce was finalized. Their 26-year marriage officially came to an end in December of the same year. Eddie wed Janie Levi in 2999, and Valerie later married him in 2111. Married Tom Vitale, with whom she had fallen in love. Sadly, following after around 10 years of dating, she filed for divorce in November of 21. In the meantime, Eddie's marriage remained solid till the day he passed away. One of the most poignant scenes in Valerie's book, Eddie's Final Moments, are described, during which Valerie and Wolfgang were there to observe his death. She treasures the moment when they exchanged a final, "I love you," because it symbolizes their enduring relationship. Valerie claims that, even when we say goodbye, she reaffirmed the spiritual principle that love can linger in the spaces we least expect. Her interview serves as a continual reminder of how special and enduring love is. Individuals who were those closest to Eddie Van Halen will always remember him, despite the fact that he passed away at the age of 65 years old following an incredible career as one of the best guitarists in history. Valerie observed at the conclusion of the discussion that the knowledge she has gained from her experiences has shaped who she is, both joyfully and sorrowfully. Self-love is a lifelong struggle for Bertinelli, Valerie. Valerie recently shared a reflection about her marriage to Eddie Van on Instagram Halen from a very intimate standpoint. Following their son Wolfgang's discussion of Eddie's life with illustrious musical career on television, she felt obliged to express her opinions. Recollections, both beautiful and tragic, and it nearly caused Valerie to halt the program. More than once. It brought back memories of her tumultuous relationship with Eddie. After Eddie's death due to complications from throat cancer, Valerie experienced a deep sorrow, as though a piece of her own life had ended. She acknowledged that, notwithstanding even after their 20-year divorce, she occasionally felt like a depressed widow. Wolfgang, their son, she was no longer his wife, but the feelings they shared had formed an unbreakable link. His demise had complicated circumstances. She pondered about it for a while before realizing that even though their romance had ended a long time ago, Eddie's passing had a profound impact on her. After witnessing her son's distressing observations, she reconsidered her roles as a mother and ex-wife. On the television program Behind the Music about his father's legacy, she considered the choices she had made in her life and how her loved ones had been impacted. Despite the fact that it was necessary, she had trouble confront these recollections. The difficult and restorative process Wolfgang underwent as a result. She described the experience of being featured on a show. Even though he had the chance to consider his father's life and legacy, Wolfgang said on social media that it was difficult to go back and look at some of the things that happened. However, they did express gratitude for the introspection. He had a profound effect on Valerie by being forthright about his emotions, which demonstrated Eddie's impact on their lives even more. Valerie stated in an interview titled, "Grief Doesn't Follow a Timeline," demonstrating the ongoing effects of Eddie's passing on her in unexpected ways for her. Although Valerie and Eddie's romance may have ended a long time ago, but they will never forget their common history. When Wolfgang gathered them, Valerie said he was the greatest thing that transpired throughout their time together. Their relationship was founded on their devotion to their child, which they upheld despite everything. Wolfgang made contact their past and present, acting as a constant reminder of their previous love. Furthermore, Valerie described the events leading up to Eddie's death, such as how she and Wolfgang were present in the hospital, offering him minimal consolation. During those final moments, in an attempt to keep things civil, they ordered pizza and burritos, two of his favorite foods. Routine and discover happiness in the midst of the otherwise tragic days. She has stated in their last days together, they relished two small pleasures, simply being together and eating Eddie's favorite dishes. What impact did his death have on those closest to him, particularly Wolfgang and Valerie? Legacy and death. As she talked about their close relationship to the very end, Valerie battled with this topic. In interviews conducted following Eddie's death, Valerie often talked about their unique closeness. Demise. Long after their close connection ended, they continued to be emotionally close. The terms of their marriage and their ultimate goals did not limit their affection for one another. Separation. It meant a lot to Valerie that Eddie was so forthright about his feelings. Although he never hesitated to express his love for her, at those final moments, she was genuinely moved by his empathy. Valerie loved that he was open about how he felt. And whenever she remembered their time together, she gave it a lot of thought. Their affection for one another and their capacity to comfort one another in their last moments demonstrated how even in death, their bond was strong. Despite the fact that their marriage was over, her final days with him were an opportunity to rekindle the love that had always existed, not just a farewell. Been in between them. Sometimes the hardest goodbyes are the ones that take you by surprise, she continued. Shock, she said, expressing how strongly she felt about their final moments together. An effort in order to uphold his father's reputation, Wolfgang Van Halen has been both an inspiration and his own musical career was hampered. Wolfgang Van Halen, who was raised under the shadow of a rock star, felt significant pressure from a young age as a result of his well-known father, Eddie Van Halen. Wolfgang with his dad, Eddie, and he had a close relationship, but his untimely death was a devastating loss that devastated him to his essence. In his reflective works, Wolfgang has often talked about the intimate connection between his father's professional and personal life and the highs and lows that have defined his own musical journey. It was a turning point for Wolfgang and his father when at the age of 15, he joined Van Halen as their bassist. Fans' opinions were divided on Wolfgang entering the band, as the role had been filled by Michael Anthony. Some questioned his qualifications, while others said he was too young for the position. This examination was especially difficult for him, as he stated in his Behind the Music special, as he became a member of the band to support his father, whose health was rapidly deteriorating, rather than for fame. Following his 2,500 divorces, Eddie Van Halen's health significantly declined. In the early 2000s, Valerie Bertinelli and his struggles with addiction were highly publicized. Wolfgang believed that joining the band was about more than just his interest in music. Could, just by being present, assist his father in being financially stable. Making an effort to maintain his as a child, he took on the enormous responsibility of keeping his father grounded throughout these depressing times. When Eddie chose to go to treatment while under the influence of alcohol, the family had cause for optimism. 2007. It might be challenging to get over the hurt caused by other people's judgment, regardless of how well-meaning you are. Wolfgang was unable to handle this lecture. A little Van Halen. Despite his positive impact on his father's life, he received a lot of criticism from his followers. They believed he was unsuited for his role in the band and even accused him of copying the performances of his father. David Lee Roth, a bandmate, refused to record a song that Wolfgang co-wrote. Wolfgang and Roth's relationship became more strained as a result of his enduring doubt about his contributions to creativity. His quest for approval, and even within the band, there was acknowledgement. Wolfgang's life was marked by both tragedies and victories. Private life as well. His father's protracted battle with illness started with he was diagnosed with tongue cancer at the age of 8. Eddie tried his hardest, but the disease continued to worsen. He was diagnosed at the age of 2017. Had stage 4 lung cancer, and doctors grimly estimated that his prognosis would be limited to a few weeks. Fortunately, German treatments extended his life expectancy by 3 years, enabling him to interact with his loved ones, especially Wolfgang, more frequently. Regretfully, a few dreams in the making were dashed by his passing. The Van Halen family had been expected to be able to reunite for a last tour, allowing the band to perform together one more, and the gigs could be opened by Wolfgang. Although there was a lot of interest in this concept, it never materialized. When Eddie was unable to continue his treatments, the tour plans fell through. Because to his health issues and the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in Germany, Wolfgang made the decision to postpone the release of his band Mammoth WVH's album in order to, in his final years, he could spend more time with his father. Eddie's passing in October. Wolfgang was devastated by 2020. It was announced that his father had died publicly by him, causing millions of admirers around the world to be devastated. Distance, a song by Wolfgang, which he released following his father's payment, is a song that had recordings of his father at home, adding an additional level of emotional complexity. When Eddie was still living, it was supposed to be presented as though he had written a song before he died. Because his father's absence serves as a continual reminder, Wolfgang now feels the weight of doing it. Managing the emotional terrain of making payments, it has been difficult for him to deal with his sadness while paying homage to his legacy. As time goes by, the pain of loss endures. Following Eddie's death, Wolfgang had to deal with the 2 bereavement difficulties and the demands his family's reputation placed on him. Because they, with the horrific recollections of his father's final days, hospitals become potent triggers for him. Additionally, he dealt with media fabrications about his family that misrepresented that they shared a deep affection and bond with Eddie. He has been open about his struggles with mental health issues. Health, such as the consequences of his father's drug abuse, an unreliable ex-girlfriend, and the pressure to live up to Van Halen's reputation. Trolls on the internet made he became a favorite target for hate speech because of his suffering as the son of a great rock singer. Those who questioned his skills and standing in the field. Wolfgang experienced mental health issues because of the ongoing scrutiny and criticism he faced owing to his last name. Wolfgang is, despite the harsh nature of the internet, they are determined to remain above the fray. Separation, even in the darkest circumstances, choosing oneself may be the most challenging yet freeing choice one can make. He has stated that one of the most important things he has done for his mental health is interviews, in an effort to separate himself from the constant negativity that permeates the internet. He has realized that he needs to maintain his distance in order to protect his mental health from hateful individuals, despite the fact that he has often addressed the hatred personally, especially through his music. Wolfgang is beginning to establish himself in the world, out of the spotlight that has surrounded his well-known father, Eddie Van Halen, by focusing on his own health, his loved ones, and his music. Considering the difficulties that come with as the son of Eddie Van Halen and a well-known musician in his own right, Wolfgang's story is characterized by love and tenacity. By doing this, he will carry on his father's legacy. Legacy while paving his own path. There are shadows in even the most dazzling legacies. Because, as Wolfgang has learned, overcoming them is a personal battle that only you can win. Not only did Eddie's death have a significant impact on Wolfgang and Valerie, he seemed to have composed a song from the afterlife in some way. The song of Sammy Hagar's Dreams in Her Dream, Sammy Hagar and Eddie Van Halen were having a laid-back approximately 1 year after Eddie's passing, in the year 2000. He said that there was no question that it was unquestionably a message from the afterlife. He clarifies informed Rolling Stone that Eddie was strumming a guitar in the dream or vision, and they were actually, since they hadn't seen one another in such a long time, they were having fun. He went on to say, Sammy eventually finished the song, saying, and then he began to play this riff, and I began to sing along, which, after working on it for a few years with assistance from Van Halen's drummer Kenny Aronoff, guitarist Joe Satriani, and bassist Michael Anthony. Lately, his presence overwhelmed festival attendees who were merely there for the photo ops. Unquestionably awesome performance at Stagecoach 2255. His performance provided a welcome diversion from the evangelistic country performances of the 2 days prior, which struck a chord with people who were more interested in college acceptance letters than in discomfort. He opened a bottle of his Santo tequila during his performance and threw it to the crowd. In front of an audience of senior hard rock fanatics, and devoured its contents, many of whom had seen Hagar or Van Halen perform live when they were at their best. Between the years of 1884 and 95. Speaking into his red Hot Wheels microphone, Hagar said, I was born to do this, he said, emphasizing how excited he was to play for such a big audience. He will perform the song live for the first time on April 30th during the premiere of his Las Vegas residency of Best of All Worlds. You can actually hear it right now. He didn't believe that the dream was merely a compilation of sporadic memories of Eddie Van Halen. He said with absolute assurance that this was unquestionably a message from the afterlife. In his opinion, in actuality, Eddie frequently shows up in his dreams. In every instance, the dream suddenly stops as soon as he finds out of the guitarist's passing. He says that this time he woke up so suddenly that he remembered all the details of the song they were writing. He went on to say, I just took out a pencil and a notepad. What are you up to? My wife shouts as I reach for my iPhone. I said, writing a song. The waves persisted without stopping. As soon as I woke up the next day, I grabbed my guitar and started setting up the chords. A few drawings, a shaky iPhone recording, for 2 years, all that was left of the music was a distinct dream remember. Nevertheless, he made the choice to complete it with Satriani's help earlier this year. I swore he said. This is my best try at a song. I will never work with Eddie on one again. Joe said, after explaining the dream to him and playing it for him, he ended up yelling and supporting him. God, we really ought to finish that. Whoa, the music is sick. The lyrics read, thank you for the visit, the music, and the songs. Why did it take so long, dedicating the song to Eddie in remembrance of their amazing days together? Following a year-long North American tour with Satriani, where they performed Van Halen songs, Sammy was so sure he was the perfect guitarist for the record that he even called he was an academic who was well versed in Eddie's chord patterns and guitar solos. He tried to include some of his distinctive style because of this. Eventually, Nashville, in order to incorporate some old Van Halen backing vocals into the song, producer Dave Cobb imported in order to complete it, Anthony and Aronoff sought the assistance of seasoned Van Halen producers Ted Don Lundy and Templeman when they couldn't agree on a specific formula. They were told to double-stack Sammy's voice before having Anthony add a third. Ted claimed to be working on 3 different projects, including a vocal track for one of his own.